Welcome to What the Freak. We have a very special episode today. I feel like I say something like that every time, but this time is special because actually the woman who is usually behind the camera is in front of it. So I want to give a warm welcome to Honey. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you be.
Hello, What the Freak listeners. Pretty cool to be on the other side. I'm very excited to be here today and give you guys, the listeners, and past members or people who have been on, past guests, a little something back for all the information that I accumulate from listening to and editing these guys. I'm Honey, and I am a multi-passionate being who is exploring many different activities and hobbies in my life right now, which is really cool. It's new for me. I've worked full-time ever since I turned 18 at a restaurant. And it feels good to have time off to explore other aspects of me, now that I'm growing into an adult. I don't think it's an opportunity that people get too often, so I don't want to take it for granted. So, I'm just out here learning and growing and testing out all different kinds of jobs and skills and just really building up my resume right now. But official introduction. I'm Honey. I'm an entrepreneur and multi-passionate being who is obsessed with spirituality and health and just how everything in life connects. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And can I say also a professional chillest human? I feel like you fit that title very well.
Thank you. It's so funny that you say that because I just feel like a lot of my life I've spent not feeling chill. I'm the oldest sibling of 5 siblings. And by a significant amount too, I'm average 8 years older than everybody, my next closest sibling. So I've just had a lot of responsibility my whole life. And so the pandemic has been one of the first times that I've ever actually gotten to sit back and just be what is life bringing me, instead of always just doing things for other people or feeling like my life is being guided by something outside of me. This is the first time that I've ever just been okay, let's see what life has to offer me. And it has been so cool and I've grown so much. I just feel for the first time really well-rounded. I know myself, which is so cool. Yeah. The pandemic, it's been weird. A lot of uncertainty in these systems that are supposed to be taking care of us. And taking that nervousness and deflecting it back to you and saying, well, what can I trust right now? It's myself. It is that I know how to take care of my mind, my body, my soul. And though the outside world may look crazy, you got to find the stability that you do have. And so that's been a really powerful lesson for me is you can control things in your life. And whenever you do that, the world in turn gives you things. You have to meet the universe halfway. If you're just okay, whatever, I'll do whatever you tell me, you just you start walking a path that maybe things just get laid out in front of you and you're okay, I'm just gonna, do wander through life not actually making conscious choices. Whenever you can meet the universe halfway and say, I trust what you give me, and also I'm going to follow those signs that you're sending me, that I'm on the right path, it's like literally the world opens up for you, which is incredible. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, what I hear in that is really living with intention and really like choosing what you're doing and not being at effect from life and like what it throws at you.
Yeah.
But rather like choosing how you respond to it and like choosing your direction rather than just following the path that's been laid out for you.
Yes. I think during the pandemic, I started diving into more spiritual topics because I was definitely feeling the call before the pandemic, but I could just never make the time to dedicate to that. And so one of the first things that I picked up on immediately studying spirituality is that energy is everything, and our emotions, energy in motion. And so it really just dawned on me that everything is an energetic vibration. When one thing starts, there has to be like a reaction, So to me, that just really meant like what I'm choosing internally is going to reflect in the outer world. And so instead of feeling powerless to the world around me, it was like, by choosing intention in every little thing that I do, what I eat for breakfast, what I'm drinking, the clothes that I wear, the environment that I create for myself, all of those little choices add up to you being exactly who you are and who you're meant to be.
Yeah. I love that. I love the whole concept of it's like a bunch of small choices. Because I feel like a lot of times when I think about like transformation or when I really came across it, it was like, oh my God, I got to like make this big shift. But it's like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? And it's really one step at a time. It's really one small choice at a time, one new choice, one different choice at a time is all it really is. Like, I feel like that's like the foundation of any change or transformation. It's just like one small new choice at a time, one different conversation at a time.
Yeah. Yes, it's like by choosing every single moment of your life, eventually you're going to have the exact life that you envisioned. And it has to start like with the small things, because you can't just go and buy your dream house right away, But if you can take the environment that you're in right here, right now, and you can make it feel like home, make it feel like that house that you're going to be living in the future, I think the more quickly you align with those things that are meant for you. You have to be in the vibration, to match it, to get there.
Yeah. Wow. I'm almost like getting this image of here's like where you're at currently. Here's like where you want to be, or like your more desired reality. And then there's like a gap between the two. And it's like each step you're like building this path. You're like creating it, because you can't just leap over there. It's like way too big of a chasm.
Yeah, exactly.
But you also don't want to just like be like, oh, fuck this. Like, I don't want this, like what I'm currently experiencing.
Right.
It's like,
that's where you are.
That's where you are. That's the truth of your existence and your reality now, which you don't want to get rid of that. I actually tried to do that. I did that when I first got into psychedelics, where it's like, just burn the whole house down. Like, I don't want any of it. And, maybe I needed to go through that process, but it was also very destabilizing because I was just actually resisting or rejecting a lot of the truth of my experience that I think eventually I had to come back to anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was actually much harder to make a real change because I didn't even have a solid foundation to stand upon. So all that to say, I really love what you shared around learning to love where you're at more in your current environment, in your current reality, like learning to appreciate that more fully. I feel like that really empowers you to make new choices and get to that desired reality quicker because you're not rejecting where you're at right now. You're actually learning to appreciate it more. You're actually more okay with it,
Mm-hmm.
which actually weirdly makes it easier to choose something different, choose something new, choose something even better.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the many spiritual YouTube videos and, YouTube personalities that I've listened to, I can't remember who it was, but she said that sometimes she'll just like do something really random out of nowhere just to like switch it up, like switch the energy up. And her example was like, I'll just be sitting there like journaling and I'll throw my pen across the room because like, why not? Like, because you can. And so, yeah, I always think of that, of just like switching up the energy. Like, what would I do and what could I do? What is you have infinite possibilities. So like, it's cool to have your routine because you like certain things, but every once in a while, you gotta throw the universe for a loop. Like, I'm going to have a Coke, one of the glass bottle Cokes tonight for dinner because I never drink soda. And this is going to be good this one time, It's like just those little tiny choices. Like I choose to drink, I always do my supplements in the morning, a glass of water, and then I make coffee. I have a little snack while I'm making my coffee. And like, that's great. I do that like 98% of the time. But then there's like a few times where I will have some soda in the morning or some juice, which is not my usual choice. So yeah, it's like, imagine your life if you just do everything the same all the time. How are you ever going to be somewhere new? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's actually very, very similar to my philosophy on why I'm 99% vegan.
Yeah, totally.
It's like I want to give myself the freedom to make a different choice if it feels right to do so and not be so dead set on any one philosophy or way of doing things, way of being 100% of the time hardcore. It's like...
Yeah.
I'm almost getting I remember I've seen this picture. It was like some meme where it was like this Buddhist monk, but he was like smoking a joint or something. It's like, just kind of breaks your perception of what that type of, person would typically be viewed as acceptable for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was awesome. Like it was great. And I was like, oh yeah, like you don't have to take life so seriously and do everything perfect, and you actually have freedom to make a new choice at any time if that feels good for you to do so, and it's probably beneficial to do that.
I just had a thought, one of the most pivotal thoughts that I've ever had in my life. I had just moved out into my first place. It was the weirdest, most random spot up in Mesa, near Old Town Mesa, circle like shed in someone's like backyard. And I moved there because I was just like tired of living with my parents. I could afford it and I wanted to. Like I had everything to do so. I was 21 and I was just like, I'm going to do this. So I did it. And then I'm sitting in my new kitchen that has hardly anything in it, and I'm sitting on a camping chair, and I was just literally like, I could go to the grocery store and buy 100 boxes of frozen waffles and literally nobody could stop me. Like I could just do that. And so you think of all the ridiculous things that people spend their money on and, you know, that dedicate their time to like doing something that you would look at and be like, I would never do that. So it's like, so then what are you doing? You can do anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that story, and I feel like I want to use in the future, you know, this was like a circle shed moment.
Yeah, literally.
This was a 100 waffle moment.
100 box of frozen waffles.
100 Eggos. Yeah, that's brilliant. What I love about that story is it really taps me into a reminder that I get to do life exactly how I want to. And it makes me question, how much am I doing things just because I think I should do these things, or because somebody told me this is how it should be done, or this is the acceptable way for it to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even positive, generally positive things can go to this weird extreme. Like when you're researching health, you know, it's like they tell you to do all these things, take all these supplements, do all these exercises, follow this diet or that one. And at the end of the day, nobody really knows what's right for me or what's right for you.
Yeah.
They can have all this research, they can make the strongest of arguments, they can share their own experience, but at the end of the day, only you know what's actually right for you and what's right for you right now.
Yeah.
Like nobody else can actually know that about you or tell you that thing.
Yeah. What's really coming up for me whenever you said that is that you can go on the internet and find any dietary claim ever. There are people who live off of fruit. There are people who live off of just eggs and meat and dairy and say that eating vegetables is horrible and you should never eat vegetables. And there are people who, you know, eat only fish or are allergic to like things in baking powder. Like there are just infinite dietary claims. And I just really, I started my health journey when I was like 17. I remember just making this super conscious decision, like I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to make sure my body looks like this, and to do that I'm going to eat like this, and I'm going to start working out, right? And so I'll be 27 this year. So this has been like 10 years of me just intuitively following what I feel like I need to do for my body. And that intuition has been influenced by diet culture and workout culture. And there was like this huge time in like 2013 to 2016 where people were obsessed with like tracking your macros. And that culture is super toxic for impressionable minds. As a teenage girl, like I went super hardcore with it, and I did not eat fried potatoes for like 5 years. Like as a teenager, an early 20-year-old, I wouldn't eat fried potatoes. And there are just things that we restrict ourselves from because we get this idea in our head that, oh, this thing is evil for you. And the point that I want to make with this is that whatever you put into your body, if you're putting it in with intention, I think the result that you're going to get outwardly is greatly influenced by that intention. So if you're eating fast food all the time, and I'm not saying you should eat fast food all the time. I think we know that you shouldn't. But if you consume that fast food with the intention of like, you know, I've been on the run, I've been on the go all day, and my bank account is looking a little tight, so I'm going to find the best option for me right now. And I'm so thankful that I have this food that I could afford that's going to nourish my muscles and the cells in my body and give me the nutrients that I need right here, right now. I think that's way different than unconsciously consuming fast food. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, because even if you consume the healthiest thing, quotes, but you do it unconsciously, or you're just doing it because somebody told you to, because this is supposed to be the best thing, you spend all this money on it. It's like, maybe that's not actually what your body needs. And I love the piece about like the intention you put into something changes the thing.
Yeah.
And that's just so powerful, I feel like, in anything that we do. And then also the other piece I want to add to that, because I really love this thread that we're on, is noticing how do I actually feel when I consume this thing. Like, maybe coffee's great for a lot of people. For me personally, I don't feel great after I drink caffeine.
Right.
It doesn't work for me. But for you, you can do it on a daily basis, and that's a beautiful ritual that you have.
Totally.
I actually like coffee, and, you know, I actually wish I could drink it more. I like the smell of it. I like the taste of it. I like the idea of it. And my body, at least at this time, doesn't do super well when I consume it.
Totally.
And I just have to, like, know that about myself and know what's right for me and what works for me.
Yeah, and honor it. I have done vegan diet, I've done vegetarian, I've done pescatarian, I've done, you know, consuming eggs and nothing, you know. I've done so many diets, and I have had the same underlying cravings, like, ever since I started dieting. So now I eat really just according to like what my cravings are, and what I crave are whole, good quality foods. If I'm going to eat meat, it's going to be pasture raised and it's going to be organic. And if I can, I go to the local butcher shop, the Arcadia meat market, and pick something up. If I'm drinking dairy, it's going to be very high quality, not just like bottom of the barrel, pasteurized. You know, if I'm consuming eggs, my vegetables, everything that I consume now is coming from a whole, like, it fits into the whole picture. You know what I mean? The way that it is made and brought into the world and sold to you on the shelf is through a responsible, conscious way. Because those foods, I believe, nourish my body in a way that is completely different than eating something that's packaged and made in a factory. So, like, the intention behind the product that you're consuming, I think, is huge and contributes greatly to the overall health of, like, whenever you're eating the thing. You know, I think we all know that you can't just eat one thing all the time, right? It's like the body needs a variety, because we need minerals and fats and carbs and all of those things. And so if you can really get in tune with your body, you're going to know exactly what you're craving. And then when you eat it, you're not hungry anymore. And like, I think that's something that people don't really know is normal, is like, if you're constantly craving foods and snacking all the time, it's probably because you have some area in your diet that is like calling for attention. So you're just consuming. And so I have found for me that really slowing down and thinking about, like, what is it that I want right now? What am I craving? And sometimes the answer is an avocado or a tomato with lemon on it. And sometimes it's a ribeye steak, you know?
Yeah. Or sometimes it's chocolate oat milk ice cream.
Yes.
That was me last night.
Yeah. We have cravings for a reason. The body, this is this is a thought that I've had recently that has really has just been kind of profound for me. My mom is a nurse, and so I've always grown up with like medical stuff. And so one of the things that I've learned through her many years of, absorbed education is that the inside nerves, like the nerves on the inside of our body, they're not as sensitive as the nerves on the outside of our body. So like when you poke your fingertip or you get like a paper cut, it hurts like really badly. But if you just have like a little dull ache somewhere inside of you, it could be something really minor, or it could be something like really massive. And if the point is if you can feel it, it's because there's something there, whether it's like emotional trauma that's like causing your muscles to ache, or it's a nutrient deficiency that is saying like, hey, you need more of this so that way this part of your body will feel better. We have to listen to our bodies. There are so many signals that get dulled down by the current food system, unintentional food system.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you learned to tune more into your body and actually be able to listen to it and hear its messages underneath, let's say, like the noise that is just kind of constantly humming usually for most of us?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I'm like, how would I describe it? I mean, it's taken me like so many years, and like I've cut out so many foods, and this is, I think, the biggest tail sign for me is when I cut out a food, and I've cut out foods just to see like if I do crave them when I'm not eating them regularly. And yeah, whenever you cut out a food for, I don't know, I usually do it for like 2 or 3 weeks minimum. And if I'm still getting the craving for that food, that's usually when I'll be like, okay, I think my body like really wants this thing. So yeah, just consciously. The other thing too is like eating a wide variety of things. I'll eat kind of the same foods for like 2 weeks at a time and see how my body's like responding to it. And then like I'll move on to like, I have like a, just this tiny little square of food that I eat for like 2 weeks that'll fill up all the categories. And so when I move on and then my body's still really craving that thing, then I'm like, okay, well, I think my body wants that. Yeah. It's hard to determine it because people aren't used to slowing down and listening to their bodies. But the biggest way to find it is to practice it. Yeah.
So to kind of intentionally rotate foods and just see like what your body is saying when you don't have that thing, you can kind of get some information about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's the whole like health information thing is really fascinating of like there's just so much out there, and you can literally find evidence and counter evidence to every single claim that is out there is what I've realized. And I want to see if we can actually apply that concept to a couple of other areas. One is around spirituality and the other one's around relationships.
Totally.
So for spirituality, it's like, it's so interesting how there's all these different philosophies and religions, and for each religion or kind of sect of spirituality, there's kind of the anti that.
Yeah.
And there's people who are like about it, like this is the truth. And there's other people like this is the devil, like this is evil, this is like you're getting sucked in, it's all lies, it's all fake. Don't be fooled. And we see this across the board, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
I read a post this morning from one of my good friends, and he was talking about like there's like this image where it was like 2 different like sacred geometry looking symbols, and one of them was like, this is a very like life-giving geometry, and this one is like, evil, or like it's like deceptive, and it actually like takes the life away from you, and so you better watch out for this sacred geometry over here, but this one over here is good. And it's just so arbitrary on how they came to that conclusion about it. Mm-hmm. But they, there's these whole narratives that people will attach to this meaning that they're ascribing to whatever philosophy it is. And it's really just, where did you actually get that from? Is that actually true? Mm-hmm. How did you come up with that?
Yeah.
And have you really even considered the other perspective from the people who actually ascribe to that? So I think it's really fascinating to like see that play out in the spiritual world. And I think it's helped me to just like laugh more at all of it.
Totally.
Because it's like, who really knows what's actually true or not? Who really knows what's actually going on or not, other than your own personal experience, Even people who speak about whether it's God or Jesus, it's like, I respect everyone's beliefs and where they're at, and I don't put too much weight into any one of them.
Yeah.
Because when people start speaking from like, oh, this is the truth, or like, if you don't believe this, then you're like going against God or something. It's like, that person, in my experience, typically doesn't see how their own ego is getting in the way, and they're actually outsourcing their truth in some way. They're outsourcing it to some type of written text or some idea or relationship they have with some type of spiritual entity. Mm-hmm. But then they're taking that and projecting that onto me or onto the world at large, and they're making assumptions about other people's experience and the larger truth, which I think the only real truth is the one that continues to more and more encompass all truths and make sense of all of these seeming paradoxes.
Yes, 100%. I'm really happy you went back to this topic, because the idea that's coming up for me right now is that humans, we have this tendency to groupthink, right? You get humans together and suddenly there's this thought that is running through the collective, and it kind of becomes its own entity because everybody's just like dedicating energy to this idea, and it literally becomes a thing, its own living, growing, moving thing, because humans, right, microcosm, we're made up of a bunch of little tiny things that are living, that are all exchanging information. So macrocosm, when you have a bunch of humans all dedicating energy to this thought of, we need to go to college right after high school, you need to get married and then retire, and the government will take care of it, or Jesus, has got me whenever I die. All of these things are just thought forms that have grown into like gigantic entities, and whenever you start living with intention and paying attention to where your energy is going and what you're giving it to, I think that's one of the most powerful, life-changing changes that anybody could implement into their life right now. Is just any tiny little decision, give intention to it, because if you're not making that decision, then something outside of you is making that decision for you. And then you're not living your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
On that note, a concept I recently became aware of, probably within the last year, from one of my really good friends, is this idea of unconscious consent.
Yes.
Like, we have actually consented to a huge variety of things that we don't even realize, that just from the society we were born into, the family we were born into, the religion we were born into, the neighborhood and social environment we were born into, we have unconsciously consented to and agreed to a lot of things that we don't even consciously realize. And so there's this process that's happening that is what I'm hearing you describe as part of this, is taking back the things that we have unconsciously consented to, and then consciously choosing what we actually want or believe in those areas, rather than just leaving it up to, well, I've, was born into this religion, so I believe what this religion believes, and I have consented to this bigger umbrella of many, many, many micro beliefs and behaviors that are deemed acceptable or appropriate or encouraged within this larger context that I have consented to being a part of.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's so wild. Yeah. There's a podcast I started listening to recently called Know Thyself, which is actually made in Arizona.
I literally just yesterday was talking to a friend who also listened to this podcast and just sent it to me.
It's really interesting. If you're interested in spirituality and occult knowledge and esoteric knowledge, astrology, tarot, like, this podcast is really cool. But one of the things that they said, they did an episode breaking down the Matrix. And one of the things that one of the hosts said, you are either being dominated or you are surrendering at all moments of your life. And so are you dominating the situation? Are you consciously taking responsibility for your life? Or are you letting something else guide you? Are you surrendering to that thing? And the cool thing about that, I don't know what it would be called, an analogy, is that there are times to dominate and there are times to surrender. And they're not good or bad, but it's just, I think, a really powerful self-reflective question of whenever you're in a situation and you're feeling powerless, ask yourself, what is making me feel powerless and how can I take that power back? Even if it's just in the smallest way, bringing that power back to you is going to put you above the situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the whole dominations versus surrender. And I'm actually paralleling this to, since I just came back from a week-long Tantra retreat, to like domination and submission.
Totally.
Which I'm just starting to step into the world of BDSM a little bit. And one of the biggest things I've learned so far, and I'm still very brand new to this world, is there is a huge piece around trust, especially when it comes to submitting or surrendering. Is like, do I actually trust the person or the entity that I'm surrendering to, that I'm submitting myself to? Do I trust in their leadership? Do I trust in their ability to handle me, to have my best interest in mind, to take care of me in the ways that I need to not cross my boundaries that I might have set? Do I trust the person, or the way that I'm electing to be dominated, that I'm surrendering to, that I'm submitting to?
Yeah. And then it's like you can go a whole another layer of like, am I doing it out of love or am I doing it out of fear? Am I dominating the situation because I'm scared that the universe doesn't have my back, that I have to control every little thing, otherwise, it's not gonna be perfect or be the way that I want it to be? Am I submitting because I'm fearful of that entity that is larger than me? Remembering that there's nothing larger than you or more important than you has been a really healing thought for me. It's like, this is my world, and every decision that I make, if I make it with intention, then I truly believe that, why would I want something bad for myself? You know what I mean? The universe is not going to give me bad things. Not to say that bad things don't happen and you can learn lessons from them. But if you truly believe that everything happens for you for a reason, because you had a reason, for doing the thing, then I just feel like that is when humans are their happiest, truest, and most authentic selves. We have to be a little bit selfish.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that piece around like, is life happening for you or like against you has been huge for me this last week, especially at a situation where actually my car got towed. I thought it got stolen.
Oh no.
Because I walked out of this apartment complex and it was like just gone. And I'm like, oh fuck, like someone stole my car. But apparently there was a rule that you couldn't back into parking spaces.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this and didn't see this very small sign that was posted about this. So my car got towed, which sucked, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. Like, this is inconvenient. But I used it as an opportunity to, instead of getting outraged and upset and just like freaking myself out, it's like, okay, what's here for me? And so like what was actually here for me was that I got to break a pattern of maybe how most people might respond in a situation, to give, the humans that I had to go to get my car back, to give them a hard time and to like make their day miserable. It's like I actually got to respond with kindness and understanding and curiosity of like, oh, like why did my car get towed? Oh, because there's this rule, and it's because so it's easy for the police to see license plates when they drive by, and this, and the apartment complex is enforcing it because, they're trying to cover themselves, because if they get caught with cars parked the wrong way, they can get fined. And it's like, I actually learned a lot of like, why does this law exist that seems pretty pointless and pretty awful and inconvenient? And, I still pretty much believe that it's a pretty stupid law.
Totally.
And a waste of time and money for all of us. But, except for, the tow truck people make some money, which... So I still think it's a stupid law, and I understand where it came from. I understand why these humans were playing the role that they were playing in the situation, and I didn't have to, like, dehumanize them. I could actually find a way to connect with them in a deeper way.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. When you choose to see, and, like, I just want to preface that this is not easy. Like, living in the present moment, it takes so much practice, and you also have to be super forgiving with yourself. It's like, I don't even want to say forgiving, because there's nothing to feel bad about. It's like whenever you notice, oh, I'm not living in the present moment, it's okay to have those thoughts of like, that was a human moment, a human experience. I'm a human coexisting with hundreds of thousands of people within eye view. Like, it's okay for me to like have these emotions, but stepping outside and taking on that observer role and understanding that there are infinite truths in the universe, that is, I think, one of the benefits that comes along with choosing to live in the present moment, is you can take that power back as an observer, step outside and see all the different angles going on, all the different truths that are making that reality for you at that moment, and use it as a learning experience. I truly believe that every person that I encounter is for a reason. Even negative encounters, or even just like really small moments, I like to think of it as like you get to see God in everything and everyone around you. And that makes it so much easier to humanize people, to not get upset, when things don't go your way or are frustrating. It's like, oh, they're human, I'm a human, and also I am God, and this is my universe. And so it's not that serious. This person isn't out to get me. We're all just our own gods living in our own world and simultaneously making up the world. So, yeah, realize the infinite truths. Don't take things personally, and try to live in the present moment and make intentional choices. And that's how you create your reality, people.
Wow. Beautiful. Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Wow. Well, speaking of creating your reality, I would love to hear you share a little bit more about the little mini reality you created not too long ago.
Yes.
With the event that you organized.
Yes. So for those listening, I am an event planner, creator, curator. I love making experiences for people. It is one of the coolest things, I think, in the universe, to create your own little mini world for people, even if it's just for a few hours. So I did a pandemic community healing ceremony. I held it at the Churchill, and the intention behind the event was to really create an intentional space for the community, for anybody that was craving other people's presence after all the craziness that we have been through the last 2 years. It's been super isolating and lonely and just weird. It's like this crazy situation that we don't have control over at all. And everything was changing, every day. It was like new information was coming out for like a year straight of just like, oh my gosh, it's just like a million ideas being thrown at you, changing your mind every single day. And I really just wanted to create a place where we could recognize that, sit together and just be like, yo, that was weird and messed up, and I see you and I love you, and like we're gonna make it through this. And yeah, I wanted to use it as an opportunity to showcase spiritual workers within Phoenix who have things to offer for, those people out there who are looking to live an intentional life. We need to know that there are other options out there for us. And so showcasing spiritual workers, whether it's like a product that they have that's made with organic, wholesome, intentional ingredients, or a yoga teacher who has dedicated, the last 4 years of her life to learning about the human body and wants to share that with you. I love, love, love getting to create little experiences where people just get to be 100% fully human and exist without any worries in the outside world. I think it's so beautiful, and it's literally a privilege to do it. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So the next event I have, you're all invited, of course, and I hope to see you there.
Cool. What was like one of the biggest lessons that you learned in organizing this event?
One of the biggest things that I walked away with from doing this experience was just like the empowerment that I felt. It's like I used to coordinate events for a local restaurant, which was really fun, and I learned so much because I had the foundation already set for me of like, this is the process, this is how we do it, so you just get it up off the ground and go. We have all of our process written down in numbers and letters. And so that set a great foundation for me to just say, okay, well, what did the restaurant do that I didn't do, and how could I do that? And to this event was all put together through the people that I know and the amazing connections and friends and like family that I have met throughout the years of bartending and working at a restaurant downtown. everybody who was there was sacrificing something too, to make that event happen. They were sacrificing their time because they wanted to change the world. And it was so empowering for me as a 26-year-old lady, woman, to just take something and be like, I have all these resources in my life and I'm going to place them at A, B, C, D, and I'm going to make this work and I'm going to do it. And I sold 10 tickets for my first event. I'm super blown away by that number. And everybody who was there had a great time, even though it didn't go perfectly. I learned so much. And the thing about, going to an event like Coachella that's been happening since like the 90s versus an event that this girl's been dreaming of doing for 2 years and has finally like put it out there, is you have to be a little bit understanding, right? Like you're there to enjoy the experience. And so you can either let the little things ruin the experience for you, or you can say, I'm a human supporting another human and I see what they're trying to do and I love it. And, wow, it was so powerful for me, like to feel just supported by people around me, supported in a way that's like, I want to put something out for you guys too. So just like the whole mutual, one of the biggest things I walked away with is just like, you're never alone and your community is everything. And that was the point of the event. So it worked on all levels.
Wow. So cool. Yeah, it was really beautiful to witness you stepping into like the next level of your leadership as like a community organizer and connector of people and experiences, and to like have such a big vision that like your first container could almost not even hold the bigness of your vision. It's like it held as much as it possibly could. And yeah, just like, my experience there and everybody I talked to just had such a phenomenal time, and it was such a unique experience that like with all the different elements that you brought together. So just wanted to take a moment to appreciate you and commend you on staying true to your vision and like doing the best that you humanly could to try and bring that vision to fruition, which is not easy when you don't have a foundation to go off of. It's like you had to build it from scratch yourself for the very first time for like this concept. And that's a lot. Like a lot of people never even start. So that's really awesome that you have, part of your lesson was like accepting the imperfection of it and just like honoring that even in the imperfection there can be just such richness and beauty and connection, and everyone can still have just the most amazing experience that they're looking for.
Yeah, thank you for that reflection. Yeah, it was perfectly imperfect. And for anybody out there that's listening that has something that they want to do and you haven't done it yet, I think the number one piece of advice that I would give to anybody is just take one step a day. Even if it's like the tiniest step towards achieving it, eventually all the little steps add up to doing it. And, sometimes the steps are really little and are super easy and you can do multiple of them in a day. And sometimes the steps are really large and they take a little bit longer to build up the courage to do it. But if you can try to do literally just one single thing a day towards that goal that you're trying to achieve, eventually you're going to get there. And I think it's one of those things that like once you start doing that, because it empowers you when you take that one little step, it's like, okay, I'm closer. So then you take another step and then you take another step. And then suddenly you're like, okay, like literally all I have to do is just take the step forward, and eventually I'm going to get there. And the momentum gets so great that it's just like there's no way that you're going to miss it. And I think that's a really empowering way to view situations that can seem super overwhelming. It's like, oh, well, I'm just one human. But it's like, this is your world, and it doesn't have to be done on a timeline or as fast as possible. If you have a goal, do it, just take a step towards it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really all it takes. Just like one step at a time.
Yeah. Like if you wanted to go to the grocery store and buy 100 boxes of frozen waffles, literally all you'd have to do is get in your car, go to the store, load up your boxes, and then go, right? It's like every single thing is just a small process. And so if you can identify the process and learn to break it down into manageable steps, I think that is one of the most empowering things that creators can do for themselves.
Yeah, and maybe one thing I'll add to that, because I think it's such a beautiful picture that you just painted, and like a great reminder that, really it's one step at a time. I think sometimes we get stuck, right? It's like we're not sure how to do something or what exactly the next step looks like. So it's like, let's say, you want to buy 100 waffles, but you don't know what kind of grocery store carries waffles.
Totally.
It's like, well, I don't know what grocery store to go to. You could just say, okay, well, I guess I can't get 100 waffles.
Yeah.
Or you can say, how can I figure out how to know where to go in order to get 100 waffles? Oh, let me search up a couple of grocery stores and let me call them and see if they have 100 waffles on hand.
Yeah.
And you literally can just call them up and find out. So it's like, don't let not knowing how to do something stop you from trusting that you can figure out how to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like you never probably put on an event quite in that way before.
Totally.
There's probably elements that you were less familiar with, but you figured out a way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned really on, probably one of the first major lessons I learned working at a food restaurant, is that the people on the opposite end, they're there, right? They're looking for the experience because they're going to eat the food, because you said you're going to have this thing on your website, so make sure you have the thing. They don't know anything other than what you're telling them. So I think that is a really empowering thought to have as a creator, is it's like, this is your creation and they don't know anything unless you want them to know. So if you want them to know that you don't know what you're doing, then you can act scared and go up to them and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try and figure it out. Or you can look them in the face and say, oh yeah, I know things are running 20 minutes behind. There's really bad traffic and multiple people are late, and we're going to get started as soon as possible. There's water over there. You can get drinks over here. And I hope you're enjoying yourself. You know?
Yeah.
It's literally all about your confidence and what you are projecting out to people. If you're projecting the energy of that you're scared and you don't know what you're doing, and this is the first time I've ever done it, and so I'm sorry if it sucks, then that's the energy that everybody's going to pick up on. But if you can put out a vibe of, I love you all so much, and I am going to make this work for you, I'm going to do it, then that's the vibe you're going to get back. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, as my hip hop mentor would say, nobody knows that you fucked up unless you put on the I fucked up face.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they don't know how it's supposed to go. They don't know what's supposed to happen. All they know is what you tell them. And I think that's a beautiful thing to understand, especially when you're newer to something or doing it for the first time. It's like, all you have to do is your best.
Mm-hmm.
And you can trust that people are understanding. And yeah, coming from that place, it's very similar to how I learned to, like, in a restaurant, like, rather than saying like, oh, like, sorry the wait was so long, it's like, thanks for your patience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like turning it into more of a positive where, like, I'm appreciating them for their patience. I'm not apologizing
Yeah.
for it taking too long unless there was something, you know, really awful that was our fault. Like,
Totally.
we're going to apologize. But it's like, you know, things take time and things aren't always going to be perfect. So it's best just to, like, thank people for being understanding
Mm-hmm.
rather than running around apologizing for everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because it takes a toll on you too. And our subconscious picks up on energy and the words that we use. And so if you're constantly in a state of, I'm scared, I don't know what I'm doing, and you're always thinking that and saying that, you are tricking your brain into thinking that you're sorry and that you don't know what you're doing. It's like, you do know what you're doing. If you really sat and you thought about it, you know, would you consciously be able to make a decision that could solve the problem? Probably. So recognizing that you have that power always is so critical to becoming a creator of your reality. And I think that took me a really long time to understand and learn, is that if you want something, you have to show up for it, and you have to say that you want it. You have to demand it, right? You have to dominate the situation to get the thing that you want. You are not a victim of your circumstances. And there's a healthy balance, obviously, of those things. But for me in particular, it was really hard for me to recognize that life didn't have to happen just to me, that I could actually control a good majority of it, at least, you know, what I can see around me right here, right now.
Yeah, you don't have to be a victim to life. That kind of ties it back to the very first thing you're talking about. It's like, life can happen to you, or you can consciously choose with intention how you want to do life. Yeah,
it's a really crazy thing to, like, start a business, whether you're selling pizzas or you're saying, hey, I can put together a really amazing birthday party for you, and here's why you should trust me to do it. You have to be really clear on what it is that you're trying to create. And if you, like, get clear on it, so that way you can be confident and show up to your clients and say, this is what I have to offer, this is what I'm worth, this is why you need my product, and, you know, that's it.
Yep.
Take it or leave it. And
Yep.
if they don't want it, that's cool. Then that's not the client, that's not the situation for you. And now the world is full of infinite possibilities. So now that you got the thing that you don't need out of the way, that only leaves room for the thing that is meant for you to come to you. And that is the result of living an intentional life, is like, okay, that doesn't feel right. Damn, this is the best thing. You know, like, I didn't even know that I wanted it, and it showed up for me because I took the thing that didn't feel quite right. Yeah, so much about life is just, like, asking for what you actually want and not settling for anything other than that. Yeah.
It's like really saying no to the things that no longer are in alignment, so you can create space for the things that are in greater alignment.
Yeah, that has been a huge lesson for me the last few years. I fell into this really great job where I was managing private events for a restaurant, and it was a cool, like, grown-up job. I worked like 50 hours a week and, you know, made great money for how old I was. And it was cool, but like there was a lot of things about it that I didn't like. I definitely felt restricted in a lot of ways. I felt underappreciated in a lot of ways. And instead of admitting that to myself and saying, you know, I'm worth more than this, I can do something that is greater and more meaningful than this, I stayed in a situation that didn't feel good for me. And it ultimately led to a lot of negative things happening to me in my life, because it's like I wasn't on the path that I was supposed to be on, and I knew it, and I just kept denying it. And so I'm not saying like terrible things happened to me, but it was just like I got to a point where I looked back at my life and I was like, this is not the life that I would choose. If I sat down and looked at Honey and I said, what kind of life does this girl deserve? That was not it. And it was so upsetting to like realize that, because it was all my decisions that led to my life being like that. And so whenever you start living an intentional life, one of the hardest things to do is like you have to own up to the things that you're not happy with and why they're like that. And then you have to intentionally choose to be different and change them. And by doing that, you empower yourself, because it's like I was letting life happen to me and I'm stronger than that. I deserve more than that. And being confident in the fact that you do deserve more than that. And reclaiming that power over your life, I think it turns you into a real badass. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, it does.
Yeah, and you just meet like the coolest people, because everything is happening for you. And if you can recognize that, then seriously, there's like a blessing and a miracle in every situation that happens to you.
Yeah. I think just my last thought on that note is, I've noticed in my life, the more I say yes to myself and to my path and to my highest alignment, I tend to attract other people who are doing the same. And over the course of doing this for a number of years now, I have a really cool community and network of people that I know, and is constantly expanding because I continue saying yes to myself and to my highest vision of what I can see for Nathan. And then I get to attract those people who are doing that for themselves, who are choosing themselves, who are choosing the highest version that they can see for themselves. And then we get to like meet more and more people who are on a similar path in that way. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it really is so beautiful how like the things that aren't meant for you, once you start really getting in tune with your body and your emotions and where you're at in your journey, is that everything happens for a purpose, because you're guiding it to be purposeful for you. And like it just grows, the momentum gets more powerful the longer and longer that you do it. Like I swear I have like powerful like revelations like every other day, just through like these little interactions within my life. I'm always just like, whoa, like that thing links to this lesson that I learned this long ago, and like it's coming full circle. And seriously, like every single person that I meet, conversation that I have, I'm always just blown away by how it seems like it was put there for me at that exact moment.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's like choosing to see the magic like in everything. You can believe that life is meaningless and happening to you, or you can believe that it's intentional and powerful and wants to give you everything that you know that you deserve.
Yep. That's it right there.
That's it. That's the stuff.
Any final parting thoughts or ideas you wanted to share before we kind of wrap things up for today?
No, I'm just like, be more intentional, people. Because the more intentional everybody is with their personal lives, it's going to reflect on the outer world. So getting clear on your purpose contributes to the overall good of humanity. And in those moments where you feel like you're being selfish, remind yourself that you're doing this for the collective, the health of the collective, not because you're trying to be selfish and, screw everybody who is trying to make you feel bad, but it's like, this is your life. So you have to live it exactly the way that you want it. And whenever you do that, it gives everybody else around you the opportunity to choose their truth too. And so literally it's just like ripples. You start something and it has an energetic reverberation somewhere in the collective.
Wow. Love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Always fun diving deep with you, and fun to do it here on the podcast this time.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much, honey. And thank you again for just all the work you do to make this podcast happen, editing, making the video clips, and just making it all sound good and helping me to keep my life a bit more together.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you and everything that you bring to me and to my life, and also to this podcast community that we are creating.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it was an honor to be here and be on the other side.
All right, and thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate you. We'll link Honey's information in the show notes if you want to learn more about her and the work that she's doing. And yeah, hope you all have a good rest of your day, evening, whenever you're listening, and see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.